Every team has that one player you think of when you see that team's logo. That is considered to be your team's face of the franchise. So today I'm going to be going over every single MLB team's face of the franchise, starting with the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think there's only one obvious pick, and it's going to be Ketel Marte. He's young, he's talented, he's clearly the best player on the Diamondbacks. Next up is the Atlanta Braves, and this one's kind of controversial, where I could have went with Ronald Acuna Jr., but I decided not to go with him. I decided to go with Freddie Freeman. He's been on the team longer. He's a 2020 MVP. He's the face of the franchise. He was there in the playoffs this year, and he helped them out. Just need to sign this guy right after the lockout ends. They cannot afford to lose him. For the Baltimore Orioles, I had a few different players I was going to choose, but I decided to go with Cedric Mullins after the season he just had. He's young, he's talented, he's a silver slugger. He's a good piece moving on forward. Cedric Mullins, the Baltimore Orioles, face of the franchise. Moving on to the Boston Red Sox, I was going to go with Chris Sale for this one, but I decided to go with Xander Bogaerts because he's young, he's talented. He's not the best with the glove usually, but he's got a good bat, the Boston Red Sox face of the franchise. Moving on to the Chicago Cubs, this was a tough one after the Cubs traded away their three main guys, Rizzo, Bryant, and Baez. So I decided to go with Wilson Contreras. He's been on the team for a while, and he's a good defensive catcher and hitter. For the Chicago White Sox, I could have went with Eloy Jimenez, I could have went with Lucas Giolito, I could have went with Luis Robert, but I decided to go with Tim Anderson because he's also young, just like those guys, and he's talented. He's a good leader for the White Sox. I like Tim Anderson as the Chicago White Sox face of the franchise. For the Cleveland Guardians, I almost went with Cy Young winner Shane Bieber, but Jose Ramirez, I decided to go with him. As Fuzzy says, he's an underrated player in the entire MLB, and I couldn't agree more. Jose Ramirez is the Guardians' face of the franchise. Hopefully he gets traded to the Blue Jays. That would be awesome. For the Colorado Rockies, I decided to go with current free agent Trevor Story. There wasn't much else to choose from, and Trevor Story is a very, very good shortstop. He's got a good glove, he's got a good bat, he's got it all. Trevor Story is the Colorado Rockies' face of the franchise. Moving on to the Detroit Tigers, I was considering going with Akil Baddoo, and I also considered Miguel Cabrera, but I decided to go with newly acquired shortstop Javier Baez. Baez is a World Series champion. He finished second in MVP voting in 2018. He brings a lot of swag to the game, and he's a good veteran to have in the club. Javier Baez, the Detroit Tigers' face of the franchise. Moving on to the trash can bangers, the Houston Astros, I decided to go with Jose Altuve because that's who you think of when you think of the Houston Astros. I know they got some good young guys like Jordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker. But when I really think of the Houston Astros, I think of Jose Altuve, so he's the face of the franchise. Moving on to the Kansas City Royals, this one wasn't that hard. I decided to go with veteran catcher Salvador Perez. Salvador Perez is super good. He's got a good glove. He's got a really good bat. He hit 40-plus home runs as a catcher this season. Perez is a veteran. He's got a lot of experience. He's a very good player to have on your team. Moving on to the Los Angeles Angels. So this one's interesting because a lot of people would say Shohei Ohtani after the historic season he just put up, but I'd argue for Mike Trout. Mike Trout kind of got forgotten after last season because he got injured and missed like over half the season, and Shohei Ohtani won MVP. I still think Mike Trout's their face of the franchise. He's been with the team longer. He's won multiple MVPs. He's going to be on the team for the next 10 years. Mike Trout, the Angels' face of the franchise. Moving on to the Los Angeles Dodgers, and some of you guys may disagree with me on this one, but I had to say it's Clayton Kershaw. Yes, there's some other good options like Mookie Betts, even Cody Bellinger, Walker Buehler, but I'd argue for Clayton Kershaw. He's a former MVP. He's been with the team for so long. He got drafted by the Dodgers in 2006. This guy, Clayton Kershaw, Dodgers fans better hope he gets signed back. Moving on to the Miami Marlins, I decided to go with the young middle infielder, Jazz Chisholm. Jazz has a good glove and a good bat. He's a really good player. He's young. He's talented. He's going to be with the Marlins for the next 6 to 7 years at least if they don't extend him. He's a good piece moving forward for the Marlins. Jazz is the face of the franchise for the Marlins. For the Milwaukee Brewers, I'm going to have to go with 2018 MVP Christian Yelich. Yelich had a down season in 2021 and in 2020, but I do think he'll bounce back. He's been super good. He had MVP season in 2018, and in 2019 he did even better. Christian Yelich is on a long-term contract with the Brewers. He's the face of the franchise for the Milwaukee Brewers. Moving on to the Minnesota Twins, Byron Buxton. He just got a 7-year extension with the Twins, and he does have a problem with staying healthy, but when he is healthy, Byron Buxton is one of the best players in all of Major League Baseball. He's so good on the field, he's good with the bat, he can run really fast. Byron Buxton is a complete player. Moving on to the New York Yankees, this one I kind of debated between Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole, but I decided to go with Aaron Judge just because he's been on the team longer, he's younger. He's who I think of when I think of the New York Yankees. Aaron Judge is the face of the franchise of the New York Yankees. He's got a good bat, he's got a good glove. Moving on to the New York Mets, some may believe it's Lindor, some may believe it's Alonso, but I truly believe Jacob deGrom is the New York Mets face of the franchise. He's, in my opinion, the best pitcher in all of Major League Baseball. He's won the Cy Young multiple times, he's been on the Mets for a while. Jacob deGrom is the New York Mets face of the franchise. Moving on to the Oakland Athletics, the team from the movie Moneyball, I gotta go with Matt Olson. Matt Olson had an MVP caliber season in 2021. Great with the bat, he's good with fielding. Matt Olson is a really good player to have on your team. He's the Oakland Athletics face of the franchise. For the Philadelphia Phillies, there's no doubt about it. Bryce Harper is the face of the franchise. He has a 13-year, $330 million contract. He's staying with the Phillies. He won a second MVP this past season. Bryce Harper is one of the best players in the entire planet. Nobody can call Bryce Harper overrated anymore. He's a good, complete player. Bryce Harper is the face of the franchise for the Philadelphia Phillies. Moving on to the Pittsburgh Pirates, where they don't have much talent, but they do have some. And their face of the franchise is Ke'Bryan Hayes. He's young. He's the future of the team. Ke'Bryan Hayes had a pretty solid 2021 season. Ke'Bryan Hayes, Pittsburgh Pirates face of the franchise. For the San Diego Padres, I gotta go with Fernando Tatis Jr. This guy's just too good not to be the face of the franchise. Some may even argue he's the face of baseball. Fernando Tatis is amazing with the glove. He's amazing with the bat. He's one of the bright young talents of baseball. Tatis, Padres, face of the franchise. For the San Francisco Giants, if Buster Posey didn't retire, I would have picked him. I also could have went with Logan Webb on this one, but I decided to go with Brandon Crawford. Brandon Crawford came back out of nowhere this past season. He's back, his glove's back, his bat's back. Brandon Crawford has become a good shortstop again. He's the face of the franchise for the San Francisco Giants. For the Seattle Mariners face of the franchise, I'm going to go with center fielder Jarred Kelenic. I could have went with Robbie Ray, I could have went with J.P. Crawford, I could have went with Kyle Lewis, but I feel like Jarred Kelenic is the current face of the franchise. He's young, he had an okay season in 2021, he's going to improve. Jarred Kelenic, the Seattle Mariners face of the franchise. For the St. Louis Cardinals face of the franchise, there's a long list of players who could have done this. We could have had Harrison Bader, Tyler O'Neill, Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, Jack Flaherty, but I decided to go with the veteran himself, Yadier Molina. He's been with the team for a while. 2022 is going to be his last year. He had a pretty solid season in 2021. Yadier Molina, St. Louis Cardinals, face of the franchise. Now, as you may know, the Tampa Bay Rays, they're kind of like the team from the movie Moneyball. They don't like to spend money, but for the first time ever, the Tampa Bay Rays spent money this offseason. They extended Wander Franco to a big $100+ million contract. The Tampa Bay Rays really believe in Wander Franco, so that's why he's the face of the franchise for them. This one's also kind of controversial. For the Texas Rangers face of the franchise, I choose Corey Seager. Now, yes, I think Marcus Semien is a better player than Corey Seager. However, Marcus Semien's contract is 7 years. Corey Seager's contract is 10 years. I think Corey Seager is considered to be the Rangers face of the franchise because he has 3 more years on his contract. He's also quite a bit younger. He's a pretty solid player too, so Corey Seager is the Texas Rangers face of the franchise. For the Toronto Blue Jays, this one is obvious. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is the face of the franchise for the Blue Jays. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is so good. He's one of the best players on the planet. Vlad just had the biggest breakout season of all times. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. almost won the Triple Crown, and he almost won MVP. If Shohei Ohtani wasn't in the league this year, Vlad would have won it easily. Vladdy Jr. is clearly the Blue Jays face of the franchise. For the Washington Nationals, this one's a no-doubter. Juan Soto. Juan Soto is extremely talented. He finished second in MVP voting, just behind Bryce Harper. He had an amazing season. Juan Soto is clearly the best player in the Nationals. He's going to be with them for a while. Hopefully extend him. Juan Soto, Washington Nationals face of the franchise. Last but not least, the Cincinnati Reds face of the franchise is Canadian Joey Votto. Joey Votto has been on the team for a very long time, over a decade. Joey Votto has won MVP before. He's finished top 3 before multiple times. Joey Votto had a really good season last year, 36 home runs. He's a veteran leader. Joey Votto is the Cincinnati Reds face of the franchise. Guys, please subscribe. This video took a very long time to make.